Okay, everyone. I am really excited to be able to talk with you about a subject that I know everybody likes. Why? Because people ask me questions all the time. Nicole, how can you really know that I create my reality? It just seems like impossible for so many people to understand. It seems like wishful thinking, right? But I'm going to tell you something, and I'm going to explain it to you. And I hope that you will start to get an idea of really how extremely powerful we all are. You see, I'm sure you've heard the expression before, the field, the Max Planck field, the Einstein field. Those two amazing scientists, they wanted to prove that God didn't exist. So they dedicated their entire career to finding that God didn't exist. And at the end of the day, they created what was known as the field. In other words, the universe. I like to call it the zone of possibilities, but I'll get to that later. And those two gentlemen said at the end of their days, at the end of their life, they said, everything comes from the field. Everything, there is nothing in the universe that does not come, that is not birthed in the field. However, they said, one must assume that behind that field, there is, I think they called it, a divine intelligence. Now, we are all, everything is all connected to that intelligence. You can call it God, you can call it the universe. And I'm not here to give you a lesson on religion. What I am here to do today, and which I really want you to understand that it's not wishful thinking is true, you can absolutely 100% create the reality of a life that you want, whether it's in your health, whether it's in your relationships, whether it's in your finances, your profession, I don't care, whether it's in everything, right? It's doable. And how? Because we are not in the field. We generate the field. Our thoughts, our emotions, our beliefs, they're not in the void, they're real. And they emit a frequency. And those frequencies, with today's very clever modern technology and machines and sophisticated machines, those frequencies are measurable. Just like before the radio existed, the wave potential was already there, but they had not discovered the technologies to access those wave frequencies. And when they were, the radio started to exist, and everybody very comfortably just jumped on board, if they could afford one, bought one of those magical boxes and started turning knobs. And as they turned a knob, which was the channel knob, they would start accessing different information. If you turn the knob, I don't know, a little bit to the right, you might get the news, you might get it in English or in German or whatever, or French. And if you turn that knob a little bit further, you might get somebody imitating, I don't know, rock and roll music, whatever the music was. And it all came through that same box. But the output that each person heard was different depending on what? Depending on where they turned that knob. Because that knob accessed those different frequencies. Now, in our bodies, every time we have a thought, whether you know about that thought or not, the thought is for real. And the thought emits a frequency. Now, you have to know that we have about 60,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot of thoughts. So nobody, absolutely nobody, can monitor those 60,000 thoughts. I think it breaks down to about one thought a second. But those thoughts are, like I said, not in the void. Those thoughts leave a frequency. The more, and we run our patterns in a circle, like a hamster in a hamster wheel. So if you are lucky enough to have been born by your mother, who during her pregnancy was a happy bunny, everything was going well, she was vibrating on the inside very happily. And that vibration, when you were about fetus of 6 months old, the physiology of your little body started to connect. And what did you perceive? You perceived the frequency language from your mother. So if your mother is vibrating happy, that becomes a frequency that you're familiar with. And as human beings are creatures of habit, the moment your little body was born into this world, your energetic system, which was already operational since a few months in the womb of your mother, automatically started to attune to people who were more or less on the same vibe. Remember the Beach Boys in the 70s, right? Good vibrations. They got it. Now, what I want to say is, if on the other hand, of course, your mother had a bad pregnancy or you were an unwanted child, you would have picked up those frequencies. And until the age, well, as you grew up, you would have been, without knowing it, you would have been more comfortable with people vibrating the same frequency as you. So that's why some kids end up on the wrong side of the tracks, and others, they don't. We're all dealt a different deck of cards. But what's important here? It's not so much what we are born with. One used to think hereditary was everything, right? But that changed with time. And we know beyond any doubt today, thanks very much to Dr. Bruce Lipton, who did a lot of the scientifically proven research in the 1970s or 80s, right? Okay. That we are the results of our environment. Our cells that he would put in the Petri dish did not necessarily come out as what he put them in, but they developed around the frequency of the liquids or the environment in which that cell was put in. Now, what does that mean for us? That means that let's say, for example, that you are living in your life. Some areas are great and others are not. So don't fix what's not, what doesn't need fixing, right? Start fixing what does need fixing. You want, let's say, happier relationship, more success in your business, a better health diagnosis. It doesn't really matter, okay? What you want to do is you've got to accept that whatever your reality is today is only the result is a mirror of the frequencies that were occurring in your past. Yeah. We're all responsible for our reality. So you're going to say, look, I didn't want to become sick. No, you didn't want to become sick, but you were worried about becoming sick, and we attract not what we want necessarily. We attract also what we worry about. And as negative thoughts are more than positive thoughts, guess what? We attract whatever that reflects. So what are some of the tools? Because this is what we're interested in, okay? We're interested in tools of how we can, concretely change our reality. So the first thing is we all want to do is we want to break down bad vibrations. And you're going to say, but I don't even know what I'm feeling, angry or sad. And the reason is because you're so used to it that it doesn't strike you anymore. It's like, let's say you're a smoker and you have smoky, rancid, smoke odors in your car since years. You don't notice it, but everybody else who gets into your car goes, ooh, what's that? Right? So it's the same thing with the energy you're emitting. What you want to do is you first want to identify what's not working in your life. I don't know, let's say it's your career, okay? Let's say you've been really struggling and you're just not getting the results you want, despite all your hard work, So stop complaining, stop saying nothing works, Instead, choose what you want. And literally, with your conscious brain here, make a list of thoughts that you will be enjoying once your career is working as you want it, according to your desired outcome. And you're going to say, well, that's an affirmation. And my affirmations don't work. Well, the first thing is the moment you say my affirmations don't work, they're not going to work. because that's a belief. So you have to be very conscious of yourself. And you have to say, oh my God, I just talked about a belief that is stopping me from having what I want, because I'm saying affirmations don't work. So how can I change that? And you start to feel upset about it and angry and short-tempered. The first thing you want to do is I use tapping. There are many methods out there to calm your body down. Many people just say, go hit a hard golf, a few balls on the golf course. But, if you don't have access to a golf course, start tapping. You can look it up. It's all over the internet. If you want more information, I've got tons of it. I have been using tapping for the last 25 years on everyone, my clients, patients, my friends, my family, myself, right? And I swear on my life, I have never had one person who has not had a positive result. It is the fastest way to break down those vibrations, those frequencies, which come from those thoughts and beliefs that are triggering a negative energy. So when you tap, your body calms down. And when your body calms down, that's when you can pick up that piece of paper and start reading the thoughts that are going to match the desired outcome you have. But of course, you can't do that when you're agitated or aggravated. So first you have to calm yourself down. Tap. Then sit down, and there are many, many tools that you can use to reprogram your subconscious. Next question. What is the subconscious? Everybody's talking about the subconscious, right? Well, it's not a coded program. What the subconscious is, it's really a huge basket in our bodies of lived and past emotions. That's what it is. And as our body becomes used to, I said we're creatures of habits, as our body becomes used to things, the more we feel an emotion, the more our body is used to it. And that starts to run in a loop. So I take an example of, let's say somebody, is an alcoholic and wants to get off, wants to get on the wagon and not drink anymore. So they make a conscious decision not to drink. And everything goes well for a few weeks, days, months, whatever it is. But at one point, the subconscious programming is programmed to keep you safe. What does safe mean? It doesn't mean safe for you to go out and have a great life. No. Safe means staying exactly where you are. The subconscious hates anything that's new. And that's why all of a sudden you're going to find a perfectly good excuse to pick up a drink again. The subconscious is very sneaky. So you have to be aware of that. That's why being self-conscious of yourself is so important. I know a lot of people say, they're so self-conscious. Well, I can tell you what, well done on that person. Because consciousness is inside of ourselves, is us. But if we're not self-conscious, we ignore who we really are. You get what I mean? So when you become conscious of yourself, you become more and more attuned to what you're feeling. You're becoming more and more attuned to the thoughts you're having. And listen to your intuition. Is this a good thought for me? Is that a good thought for me? Listen to your heart. Listen to your heart. Don't listen to your head. Okay? No. Listen to your heart. Close your eyes and listen to your instincts. Listen to your heart. That's where the real information comes from. There was a scientist. His name was Peter Garayev, I think his name was. He was a Russian scientist. He was an amazing man, and he made a discovery in the 80s. I think he's dead now. I think he died in the 20s, 2020. But in the 1980s, he made an extraordinary discovery. He discovered that the information, the vibration, should I say, not only impacts our DNA, which is, what we're made of, but also never leaves the DNA. I'm getting back to the field. A test was done, and I can't remember by whom, where they took the DNA of a dead person and they attached that DNA to a computer chip. And that computer chip was able, Do you remember Stephen Hawkins? And they invented a computer for him where, since he couldn't speak, the poor man, his thoughts were dictating the information to the computer, but he was alive, right? Here, they took the DNA of a dead person and they connected it to a computer, and the computer was transcoding or creating information that came from that DNA. And I don't have the medical information to be able to explain it to you very clearly, but I want you to, and you've probably heard about this, right? I'm getting back to the field, right? The field is this invisible zone of possibilities where everything, literally everything exists. In the field, there is hundreds of thousands, I don't know, versions of us all in different situations, happy, unhappy, successful, unsuccessful. Those versions of ourselves exist out there in the field. Our job is to attract them to us, and we do that magnetically. That's why it's so important to think about what we want as if we had it already. Because when we do that, we're vibrating at the same tuning frequency of the person we want to become, and it'll come to us. To get back to the field and this DNA, this might strike a chord with you. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, there was a young girl, little child, I think she was about 10 years old, and she had a very weak heart, and so she qualified for a heart transplant. And one day, another little girl died, got killed, and so they were able to take the heart and transplant it to her. Everything went well. The operation went fantastic. The child lived. But a few months after she got home, she started having horrific nightmares. And after a while, she was screaming, somebody's trying to kill me. And the mother was saying it's only a nightmare, But it got so bad that the mother finally took her to a child psychologist. And this child psychologist had some form of intuition. And she thought, we have to bring this child to the police station. We want her to say what she's seen in her nightmares. And this little girl was describing the man that she was seeing in her nightmares, who was attacking her and who eventually killed her. Except it wasn't her, it was the other little girl who was killed. And that's how they found the murderer. He was found, right? What I am telling you is the child who got killed, her organ was transferred into another little girl. And the heart is the organ of emotions, right? We're all emotions, but the heart is the organ of emotions. And that heart kept on emitting fear. The child saw it, was able to describe it, and the murderer was caught. You see, we are all, many people hear that story and they don't believe it. I promise you it's true. We are all so much more powerful than we give ourselves credit for, or even that we allow ourselves to, to contemplate. We are all connected to so much energy. We are only energy. Greg Braden, who I'm sure many of you have heard, he once said in a lesson that was fascinating, he said, if you want to know how much energy our body produces, you take a car battery, right? And you line up those car batteries one after another, and you fill, I think he said 310,000 football fields with those car batteries. That's how much energy we've got. We're about 50 trillion cells, and each cell is a mini us. We're only energy. That's all we are. And we have to respect that energy, and we have to respect the language of energy, because the language of the energy speaks in the field. When I do vision boards, workshop vision boards with my clients, and I do them myself, right? I always say, before you put your pictures on your vision board, first map it out. So take your vision board and draw a frame on the inside. And that frame is the reality of what you know you want. I want my red car, I want my blue house, I want my ideal health, and I want my ideal relationship. I do 4 zones, okay? Map it out. Then what you do is you draw a little eye in the middle of the vision board. That represents your soul. And from that eye, just draw lots of little strings that go from the eye, the center of the vision board, all the way out past the frame to the outside brim of your board or whatever you're using. And in the zone between the outside of the frame and the end of the board, that is the field. That is the zone of possibilities. I draw lots of circles and I put like little names in the circles because I am mapping out places for those possibilities which already exist, right? They already exist to land. When you say, oh, I just had an idea, I want to do, or I want to be, or I want to give. Do you think you created that idea? No, that idea came to you. And it came to you where? It came to you from the field. So there's already, it exists, it came to you, and now you desire it, you wish it, you want it. Do you understand? So now your job is to attract it to you. And how are you going to do that? You're going to do that by vibrating through the field so that you build up enough energy that it becomes, because when the energy leaves our heart, it becomes magnetic. And when it becomes magnetic, it's like it attracts whatever it's, whatever strength of magnetism it has, it will attract one of those possibilities that are out in the field. It's going to attract it right back to you. And this is why they say birds of a feather flock together. We attract who we are, not what we want. No, we have to become who we want to be to attract that into our life. And that's, for some people, it comes easily, but for most people, it's a process. And it's a process that is doable, and it takes time because you are reprogramming the emotions in your body so that they start to go 24/7. Now they are emoting the feeling that you want to have when you've reached your goal. Does anybody have any questions? Because I do not know how to read. I cannot see the window. I'm new at these lives, and I cannot see the window in here if you post the question. What I can suggest, I think I'm allowed to see you live after, I don't know, I've done X amount of lives. I'm new at this game. What I suggest you do is any questions you have. I'm on all tons of social media. You'll find me on TikTok and Facebook and all that. Or I'm going to give you my email address, which is Nicole, my name, at Nicole Petschek, PETSCHEK.com, and send me your questions. I answer all the comments. Or you can go to the link tree in my Instagram for sure, and maybe even on YouTube, and just book a call for me. It's free. Okay? The subject is so amazing, but I want you to believe that despite what you see outside, that you haven't yet lived or received what it is that you want to receive, it is possible. You just have to reprogram your energy. You have to align with that energy. You have to feel that energy. Don't think about it. Feel the emotion of how you want to feel when you reach your goal. Because the reason why we all have a goal is because we want to feel a certain way. That's the real why. So I'm going to say bye. Bye-bye, guys.